Leia crawled to her mother, sobbing softly. Julian knelt beside Cecilia, checked her pulse, dialed emergency services, then placed a hand on Leia's shaking back. "She's breathing," he whispered. "You saved her." When the ambulance arrived, Julian held Leia's hand the entire time. In the ambulance, the little girl fell asleep against him, small and exhausted, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Julian brushed a strand of hair off her forehead, unsure when the protective ache in his chest had begun. At the hospital, he paced the corridor, ignoring his buzzing phone. He didn't care about missed meetings. He only cared about the two strangers who had crashed into his morning and cracked open something in him he'd thought was long dead. The doctor finally approached. She collapsed from severe hypotension, exhaustion, malnutrition. "She'll recover." Julian exhaled shakily. "I'll cover all her expenses," he said without hesitation. "Everything." Hours later, Cecilia woke. Her first panic words were, "Where's my daughter?" Julian leaned forward from the chair beside her bed. "She's safe. She's right here." Cecilia stared at him, confused, weak, grateful, embarrassed, overwhelmed. She tried to sit up but didn't have the strength. Julian steadied her gently, offering water. "Why would someone like you help someone like me?" she whispered. His eyes flickered with something she couldn't name. "Because I could," he said. "And because your daughter asked me not to let you die." Her eyes filled. One tear escaped, gliding down her cheek. Later, when Leia came running into the room, crying, "Mommy," Julian quietly stepped back, letting them have that moment. Days later, Cecilia called him. Her voice uncertain. Julian simply asked, "Would you and Leia like to meet me for coffee?" At the bakery, he offered her more than a job, he offered her dignity. "A team assistant position," he said. "You deserve a chance to rebuild." Cecilia's breath shook. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," Julian replied gently. Leia grinned up at him. "If Mommy works near you, can I come too?" "We'll save a spot just for you," he answered, handing her a coloring book. For the first time in years, Cecilia felt hope. And Julian, who had once thought he had no room in his heart for anything but work, felt something he hadn't felt since he lost his sister, purpose. Weeks passed. And the bond between Julian and Leia grew, quiet, natural, unforced. He turned one of his reading rooms into Leia's library, filled with soft cushions, chalkboards, and books. So when Cecilia had an important work meeting and Julian offered to watch Leia, she said yes. He worked from home. Leia played hide and seek. But curiosity led her to a basement storage room. The door clicked shut. Locked. Minutes passed. Then a soft, desperate pounding. A thin voice. "Mr. Julian." "I can't breathe." His blood ran cold. He tore through the house, shouting her name. When he heard her muffled cries beneath the floor, he sprinted to the basement, slamming his shoulder into the locked door again and again until wood cracked and blood seeped through his sleeve. The moment the door burst, he dropped to his knees. Leia was curled in the corner, trembling, gasping. He scooped her into his arms. "You're safe," he whispered thickly. "I've got you. I promise, I won't ever let you be scared again." Hours later, Cecilia arrived breathless and terrified. Julian sat on the couch, holding a sleeping Leia wrapped in a blanket. His sleeve was torn, elbow bleeding, shirt stained, but his arm never moved from around her. "I should have been with her," Cecilia whispered. Julian looked at her, not with blame, but with something deep and unguarded. "You're not alone anymore." That night, he set the dinner table for 3. No titles. No roles. No distance. Just a man, a woman, and a little girl who had quietly rearranged his world. As they sat down, Leia sleepily climbed onto his chair, leaned against his side, and whispered the last words he expected to hear. "I don't want to go home yet. Can we stay with you?" Julian froze. Cecilia did too. Because in that moment, everyone realized something. Julian wasn't just helping them. They were healing him. And the winter storm that once swallowed the town now felt like the beginning of something warm, steady, and impossible to walk away from. Their lives had collided by chance. But what came next would be by choice. Forever started on a snowy doorstep. A shivering little girl stood in a blinding snowstorm and whispered, "Please don't let my mom die." And in that single trembling moment, the loneliest CEO in Vermont found his entire world suddenly rearranged. Snow swallowed the town of Bristow in thick, breathless silence that morning. The storm smothered rooftops, buried fences, and muffled every footstep. The sky hung low and heavy, a dull silver pressing down like the whole world had forgotten warmth. Through that storm trudged a 4-year-old girl named Leah Hartley. Her pink wool coat was too big, faded from years of use, with one button missing. Her knitted hat hung crookedly, its pom-pom half unraveled. Blonde pigtails whipped across her cold-burned cheeks. Her thin boots sank with every step, snow rising to her tiny shins. Her stuffed rabbit, gray, threadbare, one ear almost gone, hung limply from her small hand, its fabric stiff with frost. She knocked on one door. Then another. And then another. No answer. People stayed inside on mornings like this. People with warm homes and working heaters and families waiting at their tables. But Leah kept walking. Her lips trembled. Her fingers were stiff. Her breath came out in fading little clouds. She didn't cry anymore, her tears had already frozen on her face. Then she saw it. A huge stone house rose at the end of the street, quiet, imposing, elegant. Tall evergreen trees lined the path. A dark iron gate guarded the entry, curling like something from a fairy tale. Leah stopped. She didn't know why her feet refused to move past it. The house looked too grand, too far from anything she understood. But it felt safe. Like it was the only place left. She tried to reach the call button on the gate panel, stood on her tiptoes, stretched her fingers, but she was too small. So she sat. Right there on the stone step. Curled up with her rabbit. Shivering, whispering the word "mommy" over and over because saying it kept her awake. Just when her eyes began to close from exhaustion, the gate clicked open. Footsteps crunched through the snow. A man stepped out, tall, sharp, wrapped in a charcoal coat and gray scarf. His shoes left clean, precise prints in the snow. His face was stern, unreadable, carved by discipline and control. His briefcase swung at his side. Julian Thorne. 34 years old. CEO of a nationwide culinary empire. A man who lived by schedules and silence, who had no space in his world for surprises. But then he saw her. A tiny, frozen shape sitting by his gate. He froze. His breath caught. Something unfamiliar pressed against his ribs. She looked up at him with puffy red eyes. Her lips barely moved, pale and trembling. "Please don't let my mom die." The briefcase slipped from his hand, sinking into the snow. Julian knelt immediately. He stripped off his coat and wrapped it around her shivering body. Then gently, so gently he surprised himself, he lifted her into his arms. "Where is your mother?" he asked, voice soft in a way he didn't recognize. Leah pointed down the street with a weak mittened hand. "I can take you," she whispered. He held her close and walked through the blizzard, snow lashing his face, his expensive suit soaking through, but he didn't slow. When he reached the old apartment building, its door hung open. Inside, the air smelled faintly of gas. Julian raced up the steps. He found the woman, Cecilia, collapsed on the kitchen floor, one hand clutching a dish towel, a bruise dark across her forehead. A pot on the stove had burned dry, smoke curling upward.